that ties it all together for us. And it's a hot topic as well on the industry around CI. And truly understanding upstream instability driving downstream energy waste, right? We always talk about whenever we talk about CI score on the plant operation side, we associate everything to drier energy because that is where the most natural gas is being used, right? So drier energy is one of your biggest controllable cost and CI levers. But but I would say most plants treat it as a back-end problem, and actually it's not. It's actually a holistic problem. It starts all the way at milling and cook and fermentation and propagates downward, as I have shown in the case studies. So for this facility, the pattern was very clear, right? Some of the rough fermentation weeks, and in the graph, maybe it's difficult to read, but those light yellow big bars are the spots where we had some stressed batches being dropped into the beer wall, right? So when we looked through this data, the pattern which emerged was very, very clear, right? Rough fermentation weeks, almost 50% bad batch rate in 1 week, and then say 43% in the another, showed up in steam economy spikes 24 hours, 48 hours later. And that is almost zero point 0.4 pounds per gallon steam spread, which was not random, right? It was led by stress batches coming into the beer wall. And part of it is firm quality flowing downstream through stillage composition, evaporator behavior, and dryer load. And none of this would be like, a surprising news for any serious plant operator, right? They all know this is what happens. But you know, you know, you already know dryer behavior changes with feed quality. The point is most plants don't measure the connection. When you do, that intuition becomes actionable. You can see energy hit coming before it arrives at the dryer. So what we were saying earlier, a lot of these things can be perceived, or you can have foresight that you know that, okay, now I will have a dryer fluctuation or variation coming in. But what is the optimal energy intensity? Energy intensity we can run the downstream at, given what has already manifested at the front end, is key in protecting your CI score. And that is what we are seeing, that a lot of the variability in the steams, gallons per pounds per gallon can be explained if you really monitor and understand the variability introduced by your front end process. So um, and that's what we have kind of like wanted to present to the audience today, was to understand through these case studies, going all the way from cook to dryer, how it manifests in the on the dryer side, right? On the energy intensity or the energy efficiency side. And we have quantified in this entire 5 case study approach that we saw contamination reduction by 9%. We saw variability in your output gallons by reduction of like 70%, where the swings are not happening anymore by reducing that contamination. And this case shows that how same engine extends into the back end, connecting batch quality to metrics plant leadership actually cares about, which is steam cost, natural gas intensity, and CI score. And so if we can control the variability or solve the variability upstream, you have a direct effect downstream as well. So now we are actually further working in this use case to, I think we are going through like almost 3 years of data here to explain what fermentation performance or fermentation quality explains the thermal variability we are seeing on the dryer side versus what is just inbuilt downstream inefficiency. So having that clarity will further help that producer control this control this zero point 0.4 pounds per gallon swing, which we are seeing on the steam side for them. So I would say the takeaway from this one is simple, right? Fermentation stability isn't a fermentation KPI. It's a full plant margin lever. The plant that measure cook to dryer as one system will find a margin improvement that plants managing each unit operation in isolation or silos will miss.
Counterintuitive sometimes, right?
Yeah. And the funny part is like, the most experienced plant operators or experts we have worked with, they all know this is the case. They just don't have the means or the tools or the holistic view from cook to dryer to really ascertain the impact. Like, what is the impact of it? And when there is no impact conceptualization, people don't make that a priority to solve.
Right. Right. Or I'm swing shifting and I'm just not there. And, there's an issue that is going to manifest 2 days after I'm gone, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Super interesting. So you talked, again, guys, I think you can unmute yourselves. If you can't, raise your hand. I'll get to you. But I have a couple of questions. You mentioned earlier, you mentioned about alert fatigue. And then also, I'll add another one, decision fatigue, right? So we
hmm
can have all the data, all the millions of data points, and we can't be, blowing our email up with alerts. And then also, decision fatigue. What do I do when this happens? How do we integrate? Like SOPs are great, but you got to follow them, right? They're necessary and you got to follow them. How can we kind of integrate or set up the system to integrate, plant level SOPs into these alerts and these decision matrices?
great question. And I love that question because it will take me to my history of Golgix, right? So, Golgix, we were a pattern recognition company. Like we were an AI company before ChatGPT became a thing, right? So ChatGPT came around and became a tool at like 2022, 2023 is when everybody started hearing about AI. But we are an AI company since 2020. And we are a pattern recognition company. At that time, it was all about data and machine learning and AI, right? So you were able to process data, you were able to build prediction model, neural networks, pattern recognition. Since 2021, when the LLM got introduced to the concept of AI and then the agents came along, now AI systems can not only process data, they can also process context, like plain text they can cut. So that gave us the biggest advantage in our technology, in our roadmap, that now we were able to input SOPs, input context, input shift notes, input maintenance notes, input operational logs, things like that, which people maintain on a clipboard, on an Excel sheet, on some CMMS platform or MES platform. But now we had the way to just input them as it is without massaging them, changing them, trying to do a lot of text recognition, which we used to do prior to 2021. So pulling that all together, I couldn't agree more with the decision fatigue as to people always get overwhelmed, right? If you have too many decisions to make. So what we have done in our solution is we call it a pulse. Like there is a pulse mechanism in our software, a daily pulse, a weekly pulse. What is a daily pulse? Daily pulse is something which tells you whether your plant is running well or not. And is it persistently going down or not? Why that's important? Because nobody wants to intervene or have that cognitive load every day when they walk into the plant saying that what all things I have to fix. But with a 60-second tap up, like a 60-second uh, read of the entire plant metrics, whether it's running well or not, and where the problem is brewing, it really helps with taking that decision fatigue out of the equation because now they're consistently seeing a same source of information consuming in 60 seconds and they know what to plan their day with or what meetings they need to attend or who they need to talk to. And then same thing when we analyze on the weekly basis, all these daily pulses, all the SOPs you talked about, or we talked about one of the case studies around cell count where operators were not pulling the samples correctly, things like that. All of that gets discovered on a weekly pulse basis. So a weekly pulse is more of a summary of every early warning, every daily pulse, every SOP techniques misfollowed into one report, which gets consumed by our producer on once a day, 1 day per week. Sorry, not once a day, 1 day per week. And we actually are the AI partners, right? We are not a software vendor. So we actually consume that report with them, walking through that collaboratively to understand what chronic process issues, technique issues, training issues, we need to address together in order to apply those SOPs correctly, make that weekly pulse and daily pulse more effective in targeting the problem you have. And the beauty of doing it this way is it's an organic motion. It doesn't feel like, oh, we're going to go work on this project and then this project, not knowing whether that project, once it's solved, is going to sustain its value or not. Because all these activities results in an early warning system. And so whenever we finish a project, we move on, we know that the agent is watching 24/7, that one problem we solved, so that if ever drifts away from that norm, or it's not sustained, it's going to raise his hand again in the future weeks.
So we mentioned, automation. We also, had the term, cybersecurity come up, right? You mentioned that, and that's been super sensitive. Like, RFA has done, internal trainings for our staff, and we could continue to do that. And I think last year we also had a cybersecurity training just for our members, to share the things that we learned. And one of the questions, that has come up is, where's my data? Who has it? Where's it live? Where does Golgix live? Walk me through that on where everything is at and who has access.